Welcome to episode 199. We are on our way almost to the big 200. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about an episode draft. Bill, what's the timing like? Why are we doing an episode draft just in the middle of, not the middle, back half of, I guess it's at the middle of February.
So Super Bowl Sunday here in the United States. So we want to do something that kind of is in the sports ball kind of arena, as folks would call it.
Yes.
And our method to do that has been for a couple of years now. I think these fantasy drafts, which are always a good time. And yeah, I think we have a good one here. We're kind of dealing with for the Super Bowl. Those who are familiar, dealing with the best of the best. The winners of an ongoing season.
But Bill, I have a bone to pick, and I'll try to bring up the episode list here. So this is done by popularity, correct? It's not best of the best. So it is people's either best of the best or favorites, but it is. So the reason why is because I immediately go to Discovery Season 1, which is Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad. But that's there because it's in most people's list, correct? Or is it just...
No, so actually these are the winners of the polls. So these best of... so this is like a two-pronged
sorry to jump right into it.
Hey, what I did with this is I surveyed everybody for top 5 lists for each season, and from that group of submissions, the idea was to whittle it down to a top 4, because 4 is what you can fit in a poll on Twitter, and then take those 4 and put them against each other in a poll to see once, like, so there's actually kind of 2 different sets of winners. Sometimes, a lot of time they overlap. Like if it was if this list was which episode in each season got the most nominating votes, there would be some differences here.
Okay.
This list is who won the poll, stacking the top 4 vote getters in each season against each other, if that makes sense. So yes, I mean there is still a degree of...
So Magic got the most votes.
Magic got the most votes against things like Lethe, Context is for Kings, and Into the Farst I Go, I believe. So when you stack those 4 episodes together, that's the one that came out on top. Okay. I don't remember, I don't have the data right in front of me.
Yeah.
But like, Context is for Kings may have gotten more votes in the nominating phase than that has happened. Like for one that sticks out to me.
Yeah.
TNG Season 5, Cause and Effect, I think, if memory serves, was like the 3rd most in the vote total.
Okay.
It was like Darmok and the Inner Light got more nominating votes, but when you put them all against each other, the top 4, those 2, Cause and Effect and whatever the other one was.
So it's
Iborg, I think it was. Cause and Effect won that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the best of the best. It's it's based on votes, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. This is not one person's opinion. This is not mine. There are seasons here where my favorite episode of the season is not on here. I think all these episodes are great in their own way, and they all rank pretty highly for me.
Yeah.
Speaking for myself, but it's not any individual person's definition of the best episode of the season, yours or mine. I'm sure there are choices here that don't align with you.
Discovery Season 1, yeah. I would go a different direction, but sure. No, that's and that makes it for a little bit more of a fun list, and it's also kind of to dive in a little bit of like sports ball talk. It's not like it's not always the best team to make a run. It's you have to get hot like right at a certain point. So it's definitely
right.
A lot of factors go into it. That's what kind of my a little adage was. Yeah, sorry to jump right into it.
Hey,
Do you want to keep the list up, or you want to jump back to just?
Let's keep it up,
Okay.
because it's kind of fitting. I'm going to ask you. I don't really have much of a rewatch recap. It's been a busy weekend with real life stuff and the Super Bowl and all that.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten much watched, and I watched a crap ton over the last few weeks. So
Yeah, it's good.
it's a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
But this series is continually running, and we're going to talk a little bit more on this. I'm going to allude to this. We're going to talk more about this next week for episode 200. What our future plans are, how we're going to move forward. We got some stuff in lives that are on the way, and we'll cover all that next week. But I want to point out that we are coming towards the end of this process. There's a couple seasons that aren't done yet. The Lower Decks season 1 finals
process
poll
being the
is
surveys.
running. Yes. The Lower Deck season 1 finals poll is open still. People are still voting to determine what would go on this list for Lower Deck season 1. The Discovery season 3 nominating phase is open, so I'm taking top 5 lists for that, and then we'll have Lower Deck season 2 open next week, and then we're caught up until another 5 or 6 weeks from now when I'll do season 4 of Discovery. And then it's going to be a waiting process, and I'll probably open these nominating processes a week or two, probably a week after that season ends. So we're getting close to get to being caught up. And after those of you follow us and watch our show, you'll hopefully understand why we're doing it now as opposed to maybe waiting for a few more weeks for it to be a little bit more caught up.
Yeah. Find out more.
So, yeah. Tune in next week.
Just some graphical housekeeping things. I'm now realizing that there are DS1 and DS2. There's 2 different ones. It's tough to be able to fit all these episodes on this kind of list, and then also be able to have at least us somewhere on here. So it's supposed to be Deep Space Nine season 1, but I also used it for Discovery, obviously. So that's a little bit of a just. So you guys know.
I think it's pretty clear. We got it.
Okay.
We'll. I think those watching Trek Live will be able to discern.
Cool. Yes.
That all means.
Yeah.
It looks good. You did a great job, like you always do with the
stuff fitting all these episodes.
This is a bigger board.
Pixels. We usually have 25, 26 episodes. This is well into the 30s, so it was tough and also to be able to fit us somewhere on here without being tiny, so
we've done one. We did one draft that was bigger than this. If you go back and you go into our archives, we had a big huge one for all the season 4 episodes. Combined TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise with 2 guests joining us to help with that, Caleb and Jen. That was a 2-part extravaganza, so that's the only time we've gone bigger than this, and that was a whole bigger thing, a whole different thing. But we usually do this for like 1 season at a time, and so this is more episodes than usual. I think we're gonna go 10 rounds on this.
Yes, 10 rounds. Yep.
That's gonna come close to dividing this. We usually try to divide it into thirds if it's just you and I doing it. Figure you have a list, I have a list, and there's an undrafted list that are all pretty equal. You don't want to go too deep. You want to leave some left over. I think that creates some interesting conversations as well.
Yes.
But before we get into this, I'm eager to get your top 5 for Discovery season 3 to helping to determine the next couple episodes on here.
Yes. I gotta bring up an episode list.
And we're getting into, obviously, like I said, the very end of this with the most recent stuff. We're dealing with episodes that are not that old. That a lot of people may have only seen, yourself included, once, twice, maybe a handful of times, but not different kind of a game than looking at TOS TNG.
Oh man, this is tough.
It is. I instituted a rule on this one because That Hope Is You is such an anomaly. Usually, I say if it's a part 1, part 2, you can have them both. Like you can say terra firma and vote for both of them, and have it count as 1 vote. That Hope Is You, no, I think that's a cheat. because those episodes are so different, other than the title. So Terra Firma can come as a package deal. That Hope Is You, not so much on this go around.
Yeah. Let's go. Yeah, this is tough.
Oh.
Let's go. Unification 3.
Okay. I'll tease this. That's the vote leader right now for nominations. So you picking it first is telling.
Let's go. Forget Me Not.
Okay.
Scavengers.
2 more.
Let's go. There's a Tide.
Okay.
And The Hope Is You, Part 1.
Part 1. Okay, yeah. I figured you were going to do that.
Yeah.
I expected.
I really like the ending of that episode.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Definitely remember.
Yeah.
Cool. So that runs until Tuesday night. The top 4 will advance to a final poll, and all the results will come out Tuesday night on Twitter. And then next Friday, Lower Deck Season 2 survey will open, and it'll be the last one for the every week. We've been doing this for every Friday going back to like May, I think it was, TOS Season 1.
Nice.
It's been a lot of consecutive weeks.
Until Discovery ends. And
yep. Yeah. When right around the end of March, Discovery Season 4 will survey. Nice. And Picard Season 2 and Strange New World Season 1, and
finish up
onward
Prodigy
from there.
Yeah.
Prodigy eventually. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it should be interesting. That's going to be a different thing. I mean, I totally granted. I think surveying even Discovery Season 3, a season like this now, is such a different mental game for people. It's a different exercise, I think, than doing TOS Season 3, seasons that people have seen many times and have lived with for a long time and have had opinions move and change over time. So definitely going to be different. I think we have to we got to figure out who's going to go first on this draft. We usually flip a digital coin, I think, right?
Yeah, we can do that. Just give me a second here.
Sure. So, like, while you're getting that ready, like I said, we're going to go 10 rounds. And hello to the chat, by the way. They've been kind of chatting away. We have Jeff, Cyberhoney, and Jimmy77, kind of our regular favorites.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Joining us. Please feel free to share your favorites. We'd love to see your comments as we kind of go through our picks. Fantasy draft idea is really as we've done them many times, we really enjoy the slightly different way to tackle like which favorite episode. It's not just putting together, a top 5, a top 10. There's some degree of playing against each other and not necessarily being able to have everything you want on the list. I totally understand that that's difficult to replicate in like the chat setting as we kind of go along with this. But we'd love to hear your guys' preferences. And the cool thing about this pool of episodes, I think, is it so obviously spans everything. You got all the flavors of Star Trek kind of represented. We have different genres represented. We have the different shows, different kinds of episodes are kind of all over the place. So I think this will be a good barometer for like how we're feeling, what our preferences are, and always an interesting experiment.
For some reason, not loading. And I know I have internet, so let's see here. Bill, you go
or
first.
I could go first. I'll do that. Let's just make a choice, and we'll roll with it. We got such a good pool of episodes. I think we'll all live with for a while. That's the other thing with, I think, going 10 rounds here. I think because the episodes are so strong, I think in both of our opinions, you gotta these things get really interesting once you get out of that like way upper tier, and the deeper into it you get, the harder the choices get, I think. Right. Yeah. Grant, a lot of these are classics.
That's true. We're dealing with
so it might take a while to. Yeah. But I'll go first, and I'm gonna take my favorite episode in all of Star Trek when I do my overall ranks and put them out there. And when I'm done this rewatch, it's gonna stay at the top. It's been at the top pretty much my whole Star Trek life. It's The City on the Edge of Forever. It's like the original OG classic. I'm sticking with it. I think it's kind of I think we did an entire episode on it, maybe a couple of years ago now. But it's kind of a testament to what Star Trek can do. You start on the bridge of the Enterprise, dealing with a strange new world, scientific exploration, kind of a mission, and 10 minutes later, you're walking around 1930s New York, and in the middle of a tragic love story and all kinds of social commentary going on. I think Edith Keeler's view on the future really is if you're talking like, we've had a couple conversations over the recent weeks, especially with Prodigy kind of acting as a good candidate for like, how do you introduce somebody to Star Trek? I think The City on the Edge of Forever is kind of a good introduction to Star Trek because of Edith Keeler kind of summing up what the Star Trek future is and what it means and the philosophy of the whole thing. She's kind of got it pinned before it exists. And I think that's a big part of why it's at the top of the list for me.
Yeah, that's a great pick. There's probably only one other episode that I would pick besides that one if I was going first round. For my first round pick, I'm sticking with Bill's strategy. I'm going for my arguably favorite episode of Star Trek all time, which is Voyager Season 5 episode Timeless. I'm grabbing that off the board. I'm not letting Phil grab that one. It's an episode that you guys know that Discovery, that Voyager, special place in my heart. It's got everything as well. Similar to City on the Edge, it deals with time travel. But it's also very science fiction. So there's some connective tissue there. I don't know if it deals with a love story per se, but it deals with consequences of future and just the love of your crew as well. Yep. So yeah, I guess in similar fashion, it trying to fix the future. So yeah, great episode. Had to pick it.
It is. Very predictable in all the good ways. That's you've kind of always pinned that as maybe your favorite episode in all of Trek, and so we both got as our number one, picks, our all time favorites, really. Right?
Happy with that. Yeah.
Like our gut check.
Yeah.
All time favorites.
Yeah.
So that's a good place to start. I'm gonna go with Best of Both Worlds, Part 1, for TNG Season 3. That is pretty high up on my list as well, on the overall favorites. It's, Star Trek on the biggest scale. It has, it's not the introduction to the Borg, but it's certainly, I think, the laying down the gauntlet that these guys were not just like a one-off, far-off adversary that we're never going to deal with again. Like, could have been done with Q-Who, because Q hurled the Enterprise so far away. It very easily could have been kind of, put off to the side like so many other Star Trek adversaries, especially up to that point, had been kind of more one-off adversaries, but to introduce them as kind of an ongoing threat and to have them leave such a lasting scar by doing what they do to Picard and having it echo throughout the rest of TNG and other episodes and into First Contact and into Voyager, like it's such a groundbreaking, universe shaping move, and it's also very dramatic. I mean, it's got a movie quality score and great visual effects, and all the production values are there. Great guest star with Commander Shelby, who's really puts Riker on his heels, and it's a great It's a great deal for Riker. It's a great exploration of his character, and puts him. It's a gut check for him. You know, his whole character has kind of been built on. He's this ambitious guy who picks his career over a lot of things. He wants to be a captain someday, but he's kind of found his comfort zone, and he has reasons to, stay where he is, and it puts him in the spot where he has to choose and has to deal with those conflicting feelings. So it's got it all. It's got the character stuff. It's got the universe building stuff. It's got the science fiction stuff, and it's got great production values that kind of track through Trek.
It's got everything.
So, got it all. Yeah, I think it's an all timer, deservingly so.
Is part one better than, or is it just because?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
I think so. Yeah, part two's I think a great action hour. I think some people, at least back in the day, would kind of beat up on part two. It's kind of an easy out and not as satisfying given how powerful the cliffhanger is. But I've always really liked a lot of this stuff in part two. There's some great stuff with Riker and Guinan. Great extension of the Riker storyline. Dealing with his conflicting desires about being captain, and why he's captain at this moment. Like there's great stuff there. There's great. I love one of my favorite shots in all of Star Trek is the interior of the shuttlecraft with Riker. I mean, with Worf and Data, and like out the window as they take off out of the shuttle bay, you see the exterior of the ship, and it tracks. It's a really great. That's blew me away when I was a kid.
Big
it still kind of does
for a TV show.
Yeah, exactly. They really bring their A game with the production stuff in part two. But I do think part one's better than part two. Yeah. What are you thinking for your second round choice?
I'm gonna go a Deep Space Nine episode.
Okay.
Trials and Tribulations.
Okay.
I just think it's the perfect balance. Again, there's a lot of time travel-y stuff here, but it's kind of like a third of a TOS episode, so you also get some TOS stuff. Really great, lighthearted episode. It's to me, in my mind, a perfect 45 minutes. Each member of the cast has a great good things to do. There's some great callbacks to TOS in it with just the things that some characters say, and it's just awesome. So I'm gonna jump on Trials and Tribulations.
Great choice. It's way up there for me too. All the reasons that you laid out. It was like their 30th anniversary tribute to the original series, and it's really endearing on all those levels as a homage to the original. And it also, it like you said, it gives the Deep Space Nine characters things to do incorporated into the story involving T. Like it's not just fan service for fan service's sake. It uses the Deep Space Nine characters. I think it picks the perfect episode to insert them into the Trouble with Tribbles. Offers enough space, and it's got stakes, but it's not. It just works. It's a lot of ship-based stuff. It makes sense for our characters to be able to kind of integrate into the mission, and I think it was just the perfect amalgamation of these different ideas to throw some love to the original series.
Yeah.
And it's great. I think it's an all-timer, and it would have been high up on my list of choices.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for my round three. I'm going to go Deep Space Nine again. And I'm going to go with In the Pale Moonlight.
Good pick.
I think I feel pretty good about that trio of episodes. I feel like I got, if not my favorite, but really close for all three of those shows, TOS, TNG, and Deep Space Nine. In the Pale Moonlight is kind of Deep Space Nine in a nutshell to me. It does all the things that Deep Space Nine was kind of built to do, play in the gray areas and push characters to more extreme places along the sort of moral code of Trek. It grants character space to operate in those shadows and make more morally ambiguous decisions and have to deal with those things. Especially in the afterglow of the Next Generation, where they maybe weren't as interested in going there as often. Deep Space Nine went there, and In the Pale Moonlight feels like the sort of culmination of those efforts, kind of building up to that. This wartime storyline, building and building and building, and the Garrick characters, backstory and what we know about him and our own. Is he trustworthy? Is he not? How far would you go with him? And what's safe territory for him and what's not? And I think all those expectations that the audience has that deep into the show after being with these characters for so long, Cisco and Garrick, are so perfectly built upon to get
so
to this
good.
point.
Yeah.
And there's such, it's just loaded with like little moments too that aren't even the big stuff. I think we talked about it. I don't remember if it was on air or off, but I know we talked about like looking at the casualty lists, like little quiet scenes like that, and dealing with that drives home so much of the cost of the war. And Dax and Cisco, I think that's like the last great Dax Cisco scene before the character change, with Dax sort of role playing as a Romulan and kind of giving Cisco a chance to sort of go through the process of trying to pull the Romulans in a diplomatic way. And she's so perfectly Romulan in that scene, and says everything that you would expect a Romulan to say. And it's a great, it's just loaded with great stuff. And it's another one that, as many times as I've seen it, it never kind of fails. When I watch it, it always kind of takes me back and like, yeah, it's as good as I remember.
Yeah.
And let's say some episodes don't do that, but some episodes maybe don't rise to that level of, knocking me in the back.
Yeah.
I would have to get back to them.
Agree with that. For my next round pick, I'm gonna go a TNG episode. I'm gonna go The Measure of a Man. I really like this episode. I really like Picard, and for some reason right now, just in my head with Picard, it's like he's such an advocate for outsiders. Like, he's an advocate not just for obviously Data here, but for Worf. He does some really great stuff for Worf, to stand with him in times of trials and things like that. So I think that's such a staple of that character, willing to stand up for what he believes in, like in some of these other episodes here. But really, Measure of a Man is just from the very beginning. Like, this is the second season, we get that that ability to stand up for something that he believes in. Which this is not an isolated incident. This is dozens of episodes where Picard puts his career on the line, and for what he believes in. So very admirable. So definitely had to pick it.
Great choice. It's definitely one. It's another one, kind of like The Measure of a Man, or kind of like In the Pale Moonlight. The Measure of a Man's another one that, no matter how many times I see it, it kind of takes me aback every time. Like the emotional punch at the end of that last scene with Data and Riker, and Data's kind of childlike innocence showing through, and pointing out, Riker feeling guilty about being, advocating against him out of necessity, and Data saying, if you didn't do your best, she would have ruled against me, and so I'm in your debt, and that kind of thing. And the way that surprises Riker always hits me, always really great. I love that episode. It's like you said, it's perfect if you wanted to show somebody, again, like an intro to Star Trek kind of a thing, if you wanted to showcase Picard and like why he's such a beloved character and what his best qualities are, I think Measure of a Man's a good place to do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep rolling through the different shows, and I'm gonna take Scorpion Part 1. It's another. I was toying with some other options along those lines with the Voyager options on the table. Feels a little. It's very different than Best of Both Worlds, but both season 3 finales, they both big Borg stories, both kind of shape a lot of
pair well together. Yeah,
shows. They do pair well together. So I was kind of tempted to go in maybe a different direction just to create a little bit more variety in my list. But when I watch Voyager and I hit Scorpion Part 1, not much in Trek makes me feel like a kid again, because I feel like that episode hit at such a point in my life when I was young and kind of so in love with Trek and feeling like that was a big deal. I wasn't old enough to experience the cliffhanger of the Best of Both Worlds in real time. I was 3. I wasn't watching it that way when it aired, and people talk about that being such a big deal. Like, oh my gosh, you got to wait a whole summer for this. And Scorpion Part 1, I did experience. I was like perfect age for that, and it again, kind of like the Best of Both Worlds, the production values, the score, the visual effects, the urgency of it, the building upon the different perspectives from which Janeway and Chakotay come from, and maybe the different decisions that they would make in the face of these kinds of threats, these existential, are you going to survive the day kind of impending doom problems that Voyager encounters on occasion. Their differing perspectives is where a lot of my love has grown over the years. Feeling the more I go back to Voyager and the more I kind of dig into the show, the more I enjoy some of the subtext and some stuff that you might have to do a little bit of headcanon for, because it's not all entirely on screen. You don't see the day-to-day and they're dealing with where they are mentally and with being in the Delta Quadrant on Voyager. But I feel like I can extrapolate enough of my own expectations for where those characters are and where they come from to load those scenes where they're talking about their choices and where the ship stands with a lot of juice that gives that episode a lot of urgency and life. And it's always been a huge favorite, and another one that blows me away every time I get to it, no matter how many times I've seen it. It's a lot. Scorpion Part 1.
Yeah, that whole arc is really good. I guess 2 episodes, but for my next episode, I'm gonna go with a TOS episode. I too am going to get a travel to try to get some variety here with different shows. I'm gonna go with the TOS season 3 episode.
Ooh.
The Enterprise Incident. There's I don't know. There's other episodes that I'd like to point to kind of talk about with like seeing the big 3 in action. But this is a great example as well. It's Kirk being Kirk. It's one of his most iconic kind of encounters with kind of other species. There's definitely some good episodes like that. But this feels really dangerous and scary. It feels like a secret mission. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And there's some great I don't know, just secret agent stuff and some manipulation that's okay. That's just I don't know. It's a really good episode. I really like it, and it's also one of those episodes, especially in the back half of that season. When I think of season 3, it's might be the only highlight classic at this point in the show. So I'm gonna go with the Enterprise Incident.
I love the Enterprise incident. I love the Spock stuff with Romulan Commander. I could watch those scenes on a loop. They're so loaded with what are they really thinking?
Yeah, subtext.
I think performances are so complicated, and I think they one up each other, or trying to one up each other, kind of again and again and again, and while still leaving the door open for it to be a genuine connection.
Yeah.
And it's some. I think it's some of Nimoy's best stuff. Spock.
And
saying something. He's got a lot of great stuff, but it's a different tone for him. Like he's not some of his, when I think of Nimoy's performances that really stand out, I don't those qualities. I think maybe the reason the Enterprise incident stands out is that deceptive, like manipulating somebody, that kind of tone is not something that you see him do very often.
No.
That's not, when I think of a Mock Time or Star Trek II, or they're very different kinds of sides of Spock, and I think the Enterprise incident stands out. It's different.
The thing, do they talk about it in TOS? The connection that they have between that two species, like you can see that rapport they have.
Yeah.
It's just
yes, they do.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's another thing now. Yeah, that Romulan Vulcan relationship echoes into the 32nd century with Discovery now. Like that looms so large with that story. So yeah, it really does kind of lay groundwork that gets built upon for decades of Star Trek goodness. Great call. I am. Man, it's tough because a lot of these episodes are such on like an equal playing field for me.
Yeah, no, it's tough, really tough.
I'm gonna go with Duet. To me, when I look at these, that might stand out as like. There's a couple other ones that are like in that same ballpark, but right now, as I'm sitting here, that's the one that's like jumping out at me as maybe the best one on the list. But it's obviously, it's a masterpiece. It's basically a two-hander. It's
so
the visitor and the guest star Harris Yule and
one-on-one.
Really, really critical. I think if you think about the building blocks of Deep Space Nine and just how much of Deep Space Nine relies on the relationship between the Bajorans and the Cardassians, like loading and infusing that story with the dramatic tension that's going to last all the way through season 7. I feel like without Duet, there's a lot of historical context that's lost. There's a lot of, what Kira feels personally, if you're getting down to the more individual that's in front of us. Also, you learn a lot about her that informs so much of what's to come. And it's beautifully executed. It's not just like on the paper, the flat, like connecting dots on the story kind of thing. It's really intricate. It's one of those things I feel like if you don't rewatch Star Trek very, very often, if you watch Duet, you stay away from Duet for a long time and you go back to it, it'll have you on your toes. Like it's a really well written mystery. I feel like it lays enough seeds in different directions where, I feel like that sometimes, especially when I was younger, I would hit it and not know where it was going and who was telling the truth. And that's a testament to the writing and the performances, and it's one of Trek's best.
But it's both of those species in a nutshell. This secretive, lying, and then against this angry freedom fighter. It's so perfect, and it's so pivotal for that relationship to be able to just have that dynamic back and forth. It's just so good.
Right. Yeah, I agree. What do you got? What do you think?
For my next round pick, round 5.
Round 4.
Round 4.
Round 5.
round 5. I'm going to jump back into Voyager. I'm going to go Deadlock. I think that's Again, a really solid Voyager episode. It's such a cool, which is very true to Voyager itself. Is again that really cool sci-fi concept, but also it's got some great character beats with like Janeway talking to herself, and then dealing with that. It's just I don't know, really cool sci-fi, which is such a staple of that show, and it's such a staple that I love just in general as a person watching things. Is I like sci-fi stuff, so whenever we jump into that, and again, it's one of those episodes like Bill talked about. If you've been away from it, it plays with your expectations of who's gonna get out. Yeah, so it can definitely do that. It can fool you and take you to a place where you didn't expect to go. So, yeah, good stuff.
Deadlock always feels like I kind of when I watch Voyager, I feel like that's the episode where it really drives home like how much I love the characters, because they're in such distress. Like people are dying, people are badly injured, the ship is getting the crap beat out of it in a way that you don't typically see, at least at this point along the way. Like Voyager does it a few times later on, where they really give the ship a lot of damage, and Enterprise does it too at the NX-01. But up to that point, you didn't see that much distress on the ship, and it really is. It's great. It's one of my favorites. I was toying with picking it instead of Scorpion actually a couple rounds ago. I think it's that good. Always been a favorite for me. I'm gonna go because I just watched it, and it surprised me when we were doing this survey for Enterprise Season 1, the Andorian Incident. That was kind of a runaway winner, and I've always loved the Andorian Incident, but I don't know that I've always had it that high on my stacking of the episodes. But again, it's not as dramatically great as Duet, but in a similar fashion, it does kind of lay groundwork early on for the show.
It does
really effectively. Like
so good.
It's really mission critical, and it kind of establishes Enterprise's best qualities that drive that show to success the further it goes. It's not just like Sharan's a great character, and Jeffrey Combs is obviously great. I think that's what drives a lot of the love, and that's all true.
Yeah.
But when I think of the Andorian Incident, I think of the twist at the end with the Vulcans not being trustworthy. Yeah. Like the Andorians were right.
Yeah.
And to me, like if we're building toward the founding of the Federation and having these species all come together, like the easy choice would be for the Vulcans to be right, and for the Andorians to be bad guys that need to be kind of brought along. And the complexity of it's a mess out there, and this is why we need a Federation.
State of the universe. Yeah. Exactly. That's the best quality of this episode. This is the state of the universe. This is the state of the relationship, and it plays with your expectations because it's so beautifully written, because we have these expectations built up from 50 years of being like, oh, the Vulcans are great, the Spock and all these things, but it's like it's not always like that. It's just I love this episode. I'm jealous that you.
And I think early Enterprise does that a lot with it. I think it consciously puts characters like Archer and Trip into, like, I remember it when it was on. A lot of the biggest criticisms of the show were people thought Archer and Trip and the humans are too prejudiced against the Vulcans, which is true. Like they're letting their prejudgments and their bigotry in some ways, like, kind of drive their relationship with T'Pol and with the Vulcans at large. So that experience over the first few episodes, I think, fuels, and our history with the Vulcans, with characters like Spock and Tuvok up to that point, fuels our own, like you said, expectations for who's right, who's wrong, what are people actually doing, and to have it be that the Vulcans are at times, deceptive and not trustworthy and not always going to tell the truth, adds a lot of messy context, and complication, and I love it. I think it's great. I think it's a throwback. It's a great kind of, if you're trying to, if one of the mission statements of Enterprise is to recapture some of that big three idea, you know, rough and
Yeah, you're
tumble,
right.
on away
Totally
missions, on
right.
planets, off the ship. You get Archer tripping to Paul down on this planet, you know, taken hostage, and the crew's got to get them back, and they got to, you know, wrangle their way out of there. That's taken right out of the DNA of the original series, and a lot of these other shows have kind of gotten away from, and developed their own tones and tendencies. But if Enterprise is a prequel and kind of designed to recapture some of that TOS magic, I think this is a great example of it working.
Yes, I'm gonna go. Trying to speed this up here. I'm gonna go with the Drumhead.
Great call.
It's obviously a political satire on, like, you know, witch hunts and all that, but it's for some reason I always forget about it, and when I hit it on my rewatch, I always just am blown away of how good it is, and it's so simple. I feel like everything takes place on the ship. We get a great trial scene with a great Picard speech, and it's just so good. So I'm gonna go with the Drumhead.
Yeah, that was right up there. I kind of, some of these last few picks I've kind of gotten away from, you know, especially with the last one, the Andorian Incident. I think Drumhead's a better episode than the Andorian Incident, but one of my strategies here is to get a variety, take advantage of the fact that there's that opportunity to pack a list of a bunch of different kinds of episodes from different shows.
Yeah.
But Drumhead's an all-timer. It gets better with age. It's always timely, and great guest star. Gene Simmons is like a legendary actress from like old Hollywood, and she brings so much gravitas and can go toe to toe with Picard and bring him to his knees almost. It's just great Star Trek. Plays with some great stuff with, again, like the Romulans and people's expectations.
Yeah.
Like, how do you judge? Yeah, it's TNG at its best.
But it's also like, well, we want to be this Picard figure and be able to differentiate from what's real and what's just BS. But it's interesting because you could easily find yourself slipping into something like that. So it's relatable on both sides, I feel like. So really good episode.
The fact that it's Worf that succumbs and it's not just some like guest star who falls prey to that stuff is a big deal. I'm gonna go with episodes are pretty heavy. A lot of you know, City on the Edge, Duet, Moonlight, like pretty hefty stuff. I'm gonna go Trouble with Tribbles, just kind of balance it out with some light. If I'm we didn't go into this with like the expectation of this is like a 10 episode marathon or anything, but if it was, I feel like I would need some levity and some comedy. So I think Trouble with Tribbles is an all-time Star Trek comedy, maybe the best. You pick Trials and Tribulations. Feels right that both these episodes go at some point on this project. It's a testament to the flexibility of Star Trek, right? Like it's you know, you can do the City on the Edge of Forever, and you know, half a dozen episodes or a dozen episodes later, you're doing Trouble with Tribbles, and it's got the same degree of, I think, you know, it's got things to say about ecology and, you know, sustainability and, you know, our relationship with, you know, animals and, you know, stuff like that. But it's genuinely funny and uses the characters well to generate that humor, and it feels of a piece with the rest of the show. It doesn't feel like they need to stretch the characters out of character and into situations that don't feel right to create humor. The characters can be themselves, and they can use the fuel of their interactions and their relationships with each other to generate the humor. And that, to me, is like the core principle for having that kind of flexibility within your show. You got to have enough confidence in your characters and do the work to build relationships that can be flexible to generate all kinds of tones. So it's genuinely funny. The humor holds up. It's not. It's smart and witty and dialogue driven, and, you know, the characters are smart. It's not, you know, dumbed down humor. It's smart people being funny, which is a good quality for me, and I love it. It's a great one.
Yeah, really good episode. Simple setup. I feel like they just got to go to a space station to deal with this mystery, and yeah. So, yeah, really good. My next pick, keep going back. I might have the most Voyager picks. I'm gonna go with another episode of Voyager. I'm gonna go Blink of an Eye.
So good.
Another. I'm gonna have a stacked. I have 3 picks. I need to chill on Voyager. I just love Voyager so much. Again, this is check all the Voyager boxes. Okay, sci-fi concept, character driven, and then it's really good. It's man, I don't know what else I can really say about it. That it's just so good. It's it's a story that could be found in other shows maybe, but I think just this big wacky sci-fi concept makes it feel right at home in Voyager. So I gotta grab it.
Especially at that point in Voyager, I feel like that latter half of the show, seasons 4, 5, 6,
Feeling tired at this point. Yeah.
I think that's where the show was at its most comfortable with.
Oh yeah, true.
Bigger science fiction ideas and going ambitious on that side of things. And that certainly is that. I love the great production design, like seeing that alien society kind of evolve over time. Like you get everything from from caveman era through pre-industrial through very advanced like NASA sort of production design. It's kind of a really flex moment for that side of the Star Trek production team. Great guest star Daniel Day Kim, who is, if people watch Lost, he's a regular in that, and he's the alien astronaut who makes it to Voyager. It's a great one. It's up there for me, one of my favorite Voyager episodes, and I might have picked it in this one, in this next round, maybe even. I'm gonna go with man, it's tough. It's a choice between like, do I go for the variety of the shows or do I just go with like the next great one that stands out? I'm gonna go with I think my favorite episode that's on that board right now is probably Year of Hell. So I'm gonna go with that. It's also that's one of the times that the winner of the poll got combined into a 2-parter. Like that, it qualified as a 2-part nominee, and it won that poll as part 1 and 2. So you get bang for your buck there. Again, kind of like Blink of an Eye, it's kind of doing what Voyager does best. Big, ambitious, cinematic, science fiction ideas, and it's a good talking point too. Like it's always been discussed. Would it have been better as an actual season? Like, do you drag this out? Do you do it like the Galactica style? Like, have that be the personality of the show, or is it better in this kind of shorter term exploration? Push the characters, push them, and then reset it, and have the information that's useful from the show's standpoint be for the audience. Like, we saw it. Characters don't remember it, but we saw what these characters are willing to do and how far they're willing to go and where these relationships can go. And I've always been on the pro side of it. I know there are some folks out there who aren't as big on it because of the reset button, because of maybe not having long legs with the impact of these particular episodes. But if you just for me, like if you look at it as an exploration of Janeway as a captain and getting to see one of these captains who all of them are amazing in their own way, but Janeway is kind of the only one that we get to see pushed to that extent. Like, all hope is lost. The ship is beaten beyond repair, and what do you do? How do you pull together? How do you gnaw victory out of the jaws of defeat? Like that. These captains are all tested in their own ways, but I feel like Janeway gets a unique opportunity to show us as the audience how far she's willing to go. And for that, I think that's what makes it a classic for me.
It does those big things really well, but it also does like small, quiet character moments really well. With the locket, that's just that's what kind of stands out to me as well. Is that they do some really great quiet moments with the locket. So I think if I'm being completely honest, if they pushed it to a season and still used the reset button, I feel like there would be even more uproar than just a 2-part, 2-hour type of thing. But
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways we could take that. But yeah, again, all-timer for sure. It's on this list. So my next pick, I got to get some variety here. I'm going to go with an Enterprise episode. I'm going to go Carbon Creek. I love the setup of this episode. I love that it's just like story time in the captain's mess. I really do like that. It's also got some like technically like I don't know if it's time travel-y stuff, but it's got some, again, shedding some more light on how the Vulcans did things before and how far they've come obviously now into the 32nd century. Still some great insight to what it means to be an outsider, and just great episode, great story time. It felt different from kind of what we've seen to this point in Enterprise, but yeah, really good.
Getting to do time travel without actually having to do time travel.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's another one that it stands out because of a unique tone, and it's got a different kind of voice. It's a little more whimsical than especially Enterprise usually is.
Mm-hmm.
It's got some humor, really good guest stars. It's a good one, and I think it's gotten better with time. I think it's gotten more and more love and respect as time has gone on. It shows up. That's another one. It kind of won that poll fairly easily, which surprised me. I think it just goes to show, like I said, how time has been kind to Carbon Creek. I'm gonna go with another. I feel like I need more TNG in my ensemble here. I'm gonna go with Cause and Effect.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think that's such a strong like standalone one-off episode. It's a technical achievement. I think it's one of Jonathan Frakes' best outings as a director because of the challenge involved. That kind of timey-wimey, playing with time is kind of a trope in Trek. There's other episodes even on this list that I think are spins on that idea that go all the way through Discovery with Magic Make the Same Man Go Mad. Like they kind of do the same sort of, they take the same idea and kind of redress it a lot in Star Trek. But Cause and Effect's kind of the OG for that. And I think it's an underrated little spotlight for Gates McFadden. I think Dr. Crusher gets some cool things to do. She's kind of the key. We see it through her perspective, with that she's our key into the sort of deja vu feeling. She's kind of the one that pushes it forward and creates the situations where they can solve the problem. And I appreciate that. And it's got one of the best teasers of all time, the cold opens. I know I always call the teaser incorrectly. The cold open of starting the show with blowing up the ship is a shocker.
Yeah, really good cold open. Cool, wacky sci-fi concept, like you said. But again, it creates it's like the original to so many different episodes to come. So yeah.
Great.
I'm gonna also go with a TNG episode. I'm gonna go with Chain of Command.
The 2 for 1 too. Both parts.
Yeah, it feels big. It feels like a 2-parter should, I guess. Definitely shakes up the cast. It gives everybody in the cast something to do. It gives us a new captain of the Enterprise temporarily that we all are supposed to hate, and shakes up the ship, and yeah, it does a lot of interesting things for different characters. Maybe it's in a different episode, but do they go to a 4 rotation shift or something? Like it's such a shift for not just the characters, but also for just their everyday routine. So we get a lot of good stuff in that, but obviously all timer.
It is, and I think what you said about giving the characters things to do is an underrated element of that. I think it's easy to kind of go to. It's Picard with the Cardassian being tortured, but when you think about like Dr. Crusher and Worf gets going the mission that goes wrong. There's some great stuff with Riker and Troy kind of advising and helping, trying to help Jellicoe through the negotiations with Cardassians. Data becomes the first officer because Riker gets relieved. So it really does kind of give the whole cast some interesting things to play, and nobody's really relegated to nothing over the 2 episodes. So it's a great one. I think the Picard stuff's another. It's a complete all-time. Unbelievable stuff.
But Picard gets captured a few different times in TNG, but this one just feels so harsh and tough. There's a few other moments maybe that might be tougher, but this just feels like such a psychological torture. It's got both, I guess. It's got psychological side of it, and then also the physical beating that it takes.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you think about how many times it gets referenced in Next Gen and Deep Space Nine, especially. Like, you do not want to get captured by the Cardassians. Like, not good. No. Not fun. They all say it. Like, you
proven
hear it
guilty.
All the time yeah. It's like the worst case scenario to find yourself in that situation. You see it a little bit with O'Brien and like Tribunal, but that's after this. A lot of that stuff that gets talked about is fueled by what we see in Chain of Command. Like, that's our window into the reality of that. It's not just a thing you hear people talk about. You know what that's like. And it's not good. We're into our last round. That was 9. We're going into 10.
Nice.
So 1 pick left, and I am going to add to the variety by picking If Memory Serves, which is my favorite piece of Star Trek that has come out since it's come back in 2017. That is, I think, Discovery's best moment still. I think it's kind of, I use the phrase a lot, like capitalizing on the premise of the show. So much of what Discovery is built on is this decision to make Michael Burnham who she is and what her relationships are, how she relates to characters that we know from Star Trek's past, and setting it when it's set in the kind of era that we know Pike is in command of the Enterprise. It's pre-Kirk. It's in that young Spock time, and if that's the idea from the origin of Discovery, these are kind of this is the opportunity to deliver on some of the opportunities that setting allows for, and the reveal of the rift between Michael Burnham and Spock is poignant, and I remember talking about it when it aired. Like, I love the fact that it's not overly complicated and dramatic. It's something simple and understated and real world and understandable. It's not some complicated mess of a thing that you have to go into detail to understand. Like, it's really, I think, perfectly pitched. And then the Pike stuff with kind of situating it between the cage and the menagerie with Vina and the Telosians. And I also, I find myself watching it a lot. I kind of put it on a lot as like a background noise episode of Star Trek. And I love it because of especially in contrast to the rest of Discovery, it's kind of like hushed and quiet and somber and methodical. It's got a whole different overlay to it from a tonal standpoint that I love. I love the more serious, quiet stuff on Talos, especially. But there's also great Wilson Cruz stuff with Dr. Culber, kind of dealing with his coming back and not feeling at home at all and having to come to terms with his new reality. So there's a lot going on in that episode. The sort of the three lanes, the ABC plots, all land for me. Burnham and Spock on Talos, Pike in command with Vina kind of chiming in and being driven to Talos again, and then Culber and Ash Tyler kind of dealing with their history.
Yeah.
So, my favorite episode of Discovery and my favorite episode of Star Trek since it's been back.
Nice. It does what Discovery does best. I think it builds off what has come before it, but it adds context to older stuff. And so I think that's a mark of any good TV show, prequel, whatever. If you're in universe, I think you got to walk that fine line of doing that, where it doesn't feel old and rehashed, but it also builds upon what has come before and also as context. So really good episode. My last pick is going to be a Deep Space Nine episode. I need some variety there. I like one pick there. Just funny. I consider it. I'm going to go with The Way of the Warrior. That's the episode where Worf comes back. Or not comes back. He joins the show. And it's such a turning point for the show and the war, I think, initially, because we bring the Klingons into it. But I also love that, and I think it's true to the Worf character, that he doesn't fit like a puzzle piece right into this crew. Like he steps over Odo's toes and he ruffles some feathers on the station, and so I really do like that. When you add a character like that we have so much context with, we expect him to be this great war hero to fit right in on the station, but it's cool to see him not initially. Sorry, I'm talking so much about Worf, but
that's the key.
Yeah,
for that.
But yeah, it's that's my favorite part about that episode. So, and I love the Klingon stuff, and I'm a Klingon guy, so I think it fits right at home.
Yeah, it's definitely a big moment for Deep Space Nine. I think it kind of relaunches the show a little bit. It feels like a kind of a fresh, not like a new pilot, but it definitely sets the show off into its new personality for the rest of the series. Everything from the introduction of Worf to Sisko shaving his head and having the goatee, and having the Klingons be such a force within the show, not even just through Worf, but having them loom large in the story. It feels like they're really kind of reloading that show with new trinkets and giving it a lot of the juice that's going to carry it all the way to the end. So it's a great one. It's talking like big Star Trek stuff, epic Star Trek stuff.
Yeah,
that's near the top of the list for sure.
Yes.
What's the best episode that we didn't pick?
Best episode that we didn't pick. I really like First Contact. I really like two, I feel like, underrated episodes on here are Conspiracy and Shattered. I like Shattered. I just had too many Voyager picks. But Conspiracy is such an early, dangerous, gross. It's got a lot of good things. It feels mysterious. It feels like I like the camaraderie that ships captains have to meet somewhere. I really do like that. I like the idea of the Federation and Starfleet getting infiltrated. I do like that secretive stuff. But at the end of the day, it is still TNG season 1. So, but it's got some good stuff. But yeah. So yeah, probably for me, my next pick or my next would probably be Nepenthe's up there too, but it would probably be First Contact or Conspiracy.
First Contact for me, All Good Things for me. All Good Things, I there were a couple of rounds there where if I wasn't going for the variety, kind of wanting to mix in different shows and different kinds of stories, I'd probably go there. It's way up there for me. It's by far my favorite finale, and it's way up on my TNG list. To me, that's the one that's probably the highest on my overall ranks. That I personally didn't pick, but I kind of wanted my kind of thought going in was I wanted standalone kind of stories, things that worked on their own. I was kind of thinking about it through the lens of if I was sitting down to watch these in a day or over a weekend, what would I want to get a little taste of everything, and I think that's probably why I left things like finales out. What You Leave Behind, All Good Things. And I think I steered away from First Contact a little bit because I did the Best of Both Worlds, and
True.
It took Scorpion too.
There's some Borg heavy stuff there.
Yeah, I didn't want to get too heavy on the Borg, but I mean, First Contact's obviously a upper tier Star Trek.
It is
on all levels.
Yeah,
there's a lot of great stuff here. I mean, that's the trick with this kind of a thing when you pull together episodes.
All these are good episodes.
There's not one thing on here that I don't think is great in its own way. So you could kind of give me any combination of these, and I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, that's what I think made this kind of draft tough, is being able to, we did a stinker type of draft where we had to sift through kind of the stinkers, but this was tough because all of them are just top tier episodes of their season, I guess popularity wise. So it's tough.
Very much so. Yep. I think that'll about do it. This went long, like our fantasy drafts usually do. Yes. I think they're kind of built to be long, and but they're a lot of fun. I always enjoy these. I think they're a really cool way to explore our favorites. Like I said, without just kind of naming off the top 10, top 5. A little bit of you can't have everything you want. I enjoy it also with I love doing a season. I think that's really fun, especially if it's a season you just watched. That can be a really fun way to kind of digest what you just experienced there. But having it come from different shows and different kinds of Star Trek and putting it all together made for an interesting experiment too. It pushes me when I see it like that. I'm always pushed to want the variety and want to not hone in on any one thing too much. Interesting challenge, but I guarantee you, if we sat down and did that again tomorrow,
be different.
It would be a different. It would, I would. I'm already
love about drafts. A
little different. Yeah.
Because there's some
good things would go.
Yeah. Because there's some. I don't know. There's some picks that I would want to steal from you, and I'm sure it's vice versa. So, always fun. We'll be back next week. Not specifically talking about Trek, but just about Trek Live in general. Sorry, chat. I think both Bill and I were just involved.
That happens with the drafts.
The draft, it's hard to be able to dive in, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. Definitely. Twitter and Discord. Give us your picks. I want to see what 10 episodes you would draft, and then if you'd like, what would be your next pick, or what's the next best episode on the draft board.
Really appreciate everybody's feedback and thoughts.
Thank you.
It's great to kind of read along, and appreciate it.
I'd like to thank everybody for watching. Thank you, chat. As always, you guys make the show, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.